What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Dana White shows off new physique after major life changes. UFC President Dana White has gone through an absolutely incredible transformation recently after receiving some staggering news about his health. According to the UFC President, after meeting with a mortality expert, he received some harrowing news that prompted him to radically change his life. After undergoing a blood test and a DNA test, White was just given over 10 years to live if he didn't change his habits. Never one to back down from a challenge, the outspoken White changed everything about his daily routine to improve his health. On the heels of the stunning revelation, an image of White rocking his six-pack popped up on Twitter, leaving fight fans absolutely speechless. The image quickly spread like wildfire across the internet as fans were quick to give their reactions to the UFC president's shredded new look. Considering White is 53 years old, the fact that he looks as fit as half of the UFC roster is staggering. UFC middleweight Paulo Costa attributed the change to some of his secret juice. The unknown concoction has been the talk of the MMA community after the former title challenger brought the drink with him to his UFC 279 media obligations. For his part, White says he's feeling better than he's ever felt before. Considering the UFC president used to miss events due to Meniere's disease, the transformation in his health is great to see. Recently, White revealed that at the time the UFC was in the process of being acquired by WME-IMG, he thought about retiring. Unfortunately, a potential sale couldn't go through without White staying on board. Thankfully, with White now being in top physical shape, he has a renewed energy towards the future and has no plans to retire anytime soon. Aljamain Sterling not counting Sean O'Malley out of UFC 280 fight. Although Sugar Sean O'Malley is currently the betting underdog for his UFC 280 bout with former interim bantamweight champion Peter Yan, the 135-pound champion isn't counting him out. Both O'Malley and Sterling will fight on a stacked Abu Dhabi card on October 22nd as O'Malley looks to become the #1 contender while Sterling looks to defend his bantamweight title. With just weeks left to go until the card, Sterling has weighed in on the #1 contender bout, explaining on a recent episode of Submission Radio that it could be a miserable night for Peter Yan.
They make him sound like he's this unbeatable robot. I'm like, dude, whatever. If he starts behind the 8 ball like that and gives O'Malley a chance in a 3-round fight, an opportunity to run up the score on him, pick his shots, it could be a miserable night for Yan.
As Sterling went on to explain, Yan is an incredibly durable fighter who can just as easily give O'Malley a rough night in the octagon. The way the champ sees it, the former interim champion can chop down the legs of O'Malley and have himself a successful outing. With that said, however, he cautioned his former opponent about letting Sugar Sean jump out to an early lead while he finds his timing. With fight fans counting down the days until these two pivotal bantamweight fights take place, we want to hear from you. Which two bantamweights do you think will emerge victorious from the mini tournament taking place at UFC 280? Sound off down below. Next up, strong wrestling background could help Jon Jones achieve heavyweight greatness. Former pound-for-pound kingpin Jon Jones has been absent from active competition for quite a few years now. After defeating Dominic Reyes in early 2020 in a bout which received heavy criticism for its scoring, Johnny Bones declared his intentions to move up and fight for the heavyweight title. Despite the chance for Jones to make history, things didn't play out the way the champion wanted. After negotiations stalled, Jones ultimately ended up relinquishing the 205-pound strap in the midst of a rather public spat with the UFC brass. It has now been over 2 years since Jones has set foot in the octagon, and fans are incredibly anxious to see him make the transition to heavyweight. With the heavyweight title picture more exciting than ever, adding Jones into the mix seems like a no-brainer. With all that being said, we still have no idea when he will fight and who it will be against. In the meantime, all we've been left to do is speculate on how the former champ will look at heavyweight. The way Jones' striking coach Brandon Gibson sees it, Bones' wrestling could very well be the X factor at heavyweight.
But Jon's wrestling is on another level, his ground and pound's on another level, his jiu-jitsu's on another level, and then just the full spectrum of his striking arsenal I think is on another level. So Jon's gonna bring a lot to the table at heavyweight that I don't think we've ever seen another heavyweight bring.
Considering the fact that aside from Curtis Blades, very few top-ranked heavyweights possess a strong wrestling background, Jones could have his work cut out for him. And before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Ariel Helwani talks Khamzat Chimaev split with Dominance MMA. Ever since Khamzat Chimaev split with Ali Abdelaziz in Dominance MMA, speculation and rumors have continued to fly. Initially, fans thought the split had to do with a potential beef with longtime Dominance MMA fighter Khabib Nurmagomedov. For their part, both men shut down any talk of ongoing rivalry and gave respect to one another publicly. Although things had been amicable between the two teams for some time, recent comments from UFC Hall of Famer Khabib Nurmagomedov reignited a potential beef when he criticized the streaking prospect for missing weight by nearly 10 pounds. The way Nurmagomedov saw things, had Chimaev surrounded himself with more Muslims, he would have been held more responsible and wouldn't have missed weight. The comments quickly generated controversy and prompted Chimaev's All-Stars MMA teammate Reza Madadi to pen a lengthy statement criticizing the Eagle for his comments. The way longtime MMA Journalist of the Year Ariel Helwani sees it, the comments regarding Chimaev could be indicative of an ongoing spat between the three-time Swedish national wrestling champion and the UFC Hall of Famer.
I do know that part of the reason why Khamzat left Dominance was because him and Khabib just weren't on the same level and there was some uncomfortableness there. But honestly, I mean, you'd have to ask Khabib, his thoughts on him. But yeah, that was, that's a big fish to lose. And I do know that they're not the best of friends. Why that is, I don't know.
With this information now public, we could get a response from either Ali Abdelaziz or Khabib Nurmagomedov sooner rather than later, considering the fact that both men routinely field questions from media members at Eagle FC events. Stay tuned for more updates and developments on this situation as they become available. And now for our breaking news story of the day, we have Khamzat Chimaev breaking his silence on visa issues in Russia. Earlier today, it was reported that Khamzat's passport was seized by the Russian government and they're holding him for recruitment. Now, Khamzat has come out and said this: start training camp, fight somebody, find somebody, smash somebody, make money. So it looks like his passport was not seized and he will be fighting again soon. What do you guys think about this situation? Is Khamzat telling the truth? Or do you think Russia is still holding him there? Next up, we have Nate Diaz pranking a mascot by punching him in the face and taking his belt.
Oh, damn. You guys don't even help me. I'm sorry for hitting you.
Last up, Chael Sonnen gives update on Jake Paul's MMA transition. Ahead of his upcoming boxing match with Anderson Silva in Arizona, Jake Paul has teased a potential move to MMA. The controversial internet personality revealed during a podcast that he was working with a big MMA organization to work out the details of his debut fight. Naturally, MMA fans were quick to call Paul out for creating headlines as they questioned whether or not he was serious about competing in MMA. According to former UFC middleweight title challenger Chael Sonnen, Paul is much more serious than fight fans think. He spoke in a recent YouTube video to give details about the situation, saying,
"Does his boxing over on Showtime? Showtime hosts Bellator. It's the same people. The same people that Jake is working with for marketing, for PR, for production with the boxing are the same folks with Showtime that also represent the Bellator. So I'm just saying, if Jake was to sign somewhere else, then everybody's going to want him. Not to mention, the perfect opponent for right now for Jake is Dylan Dennis, who's under contract with Bellator. So that would be a strong leading candidate.
Paul's plans to make the transition to MMA largely, of course, hinge on the former Disney Channel star's ability to defeat UFC legend Anderson Silva when the pair collide in the boxing ring on October 29th. The bout will serve as a true test for the budding young star as he looks to legitimize a boxing run that has seen him face less than stellar talent so far over his 5-fight run. On the flip side of things, Silva is looking to pick up some major momentum by ending the Jake Paul hype train. After picking up an impressive win over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. following the end of his UFC career, Silva knocked out former UFC champion Tito Ortiz. When he meets Paul inside the ring, he will look to become the first man to avoid being knocked out by Paul. Should he choose to make the transition to MMA after the bout, a scrap between him and Dylan Dennis would certainly garner a ton of interest. Dennis, of course, hasn't fought since his first-round submission win over Max Humphrey in 2019. With fans wondering whether Dennis will ever compete in MMA again, a bout with Jake Paul could be exactly what he needs to take his stock to a new level. Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button below and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.